Hi everyone, this is Yana and welcome to another Altnew video tutorial. I'd like to share one of my favorite ways to create beautiful stamped backgrounds for cards. I love stamping. I love to create stamped images, stamped patterns, and stamped backgrounds. Whenever I work with large images, with large stamps, I like to do my stamping on a full sheet of cardstock, so full letter sheet for example. It takes a little longer than stamping a background for an A2 card, but that does give you backgrounds for 4 projects right away. I'm going to be using a Peony Bouquet stamp set from Altnew. It features a mix of flowers and leaves, and all of these images are very large elements, and are also color layering elements, meaning you can use several colors of ink to stamp them and make them look like they've been colored using markers or pencils. I'm going to start by stamping outlines first. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink for that. I have all of the outline images mounted onto clear blocks to make things go faster, and I'm just going to switch in between the images as I'm stamping. I'm starting with the largest image from this set, the large blooming peony flower. I'm adding a few leaves next to it, also a smaller flower, and once this particular cluster of images is done, I'm going to move on and add more images alternating the flowers and the leaves. I have already used this stamp set a few times before, and what I really like doing is making masks and masking the flower and stamping the leaves so that it looks like the leaves are attached to the flower. It looks stunning. But it also takes a lot more time with masking, so I'm not doing any masking for this background, just stamping the images one by one, creating a beautiful background piece. Now, it might not look like much at first. It's just going to look like a not so pretty black outline. But once we start adding color, that's when things will change and this black and white piece will turn into a really beautiful background. Whenever I work on backgrounds like this one, I often stamp things differently. I would start with the largest image and would stamp it an odd number of times, then would switch the second largest image and would use it to fill in the blanks, and then use the third largest stamp to fill in the smaller areas and so on. Because I'm using a flower with leaves here that go well together, I'm trying to create a cluster. So a big flower, 2 or 3 leaves, and a smaller flower for each cluster. It doesn't always work, but that's my intention here. I'm also working from one side to the other rather than stamping large images and filling in the blanks in between, because I don't really have any small images for this background. If I end up having smaller unstamped sections, I wouldn't be able to fill them in using the smaller images from this set. Overall, it took me about 7 minutes to stamp this black and white outline background. It might seem like a lot of time, but I do find this relaxing, so I don't really mind spending the time playing with my stamps. After the outline stamping was done, I moved on to coloring my images. I like to color one particular type of image and use one color at a time. It just makes more sense to me and it's easier for me to avoid making mistakes. So I'm starting with the lightest green ink from Altnew, and by the way, the inks that I'll be using to color these images are all from Altnew. You can of course use other inks. I prefer Altnew for this because they just barely stain your stamps and you can still see through the stamp even after you've used it a bunch of times. I think this is very important for detailed color layering like this one. So starting with a frayed leaf here and coloring my smallest leaf. I'm also stamping the base color for the medium and large leaves and the stem for the smallest flower. Next, switching to a medium green Forest Glades and stamping the second layer for my leaves. And once you start adding a bit of color and add that second color, you really begin to see your background come to life. I think of this as a coloring book for stampers. I make my own motif, I pick my own colors, and I stamp my heart out and create whatever I want. Once the leaves were colored, I moved into coloring the small flower. I used the Buttercream, Mango Smoothie, and Caramel Toffee inks for my stamping. I apologize for having my head in the way most of the time, but I was trying to do my best to align the layers for perfect stamping. So I also added the second layer, and I know you can't really tell that on camera, but it added a few shadows and highlights to my flowers. And finally, I stamped the last layer using the Caramel Toffee ink color, and that really made my flowers pop. I went with light colors. I didn't want to have a very vibrant background, more of a soft and muted one. Finally, I stamped the largest flower, or colored the largest flower using Frosty Pink, Cotton Candy, and Coral Berry ink colors. It probably would have taken me a lot longer to color this using pencils or markers, and there's no way I would be able to color the flowers like this. although I do want to try to do coloring like this one day. These stamps make it very easy to create fantastic images on projects using just stamps and inks. You don't have to think about shadows and highlights and all that. You have it all designed for you right away in the stamp set. So once the background was done, and you can catch a quick look at it here, I used my paper trimmer and cut it into 4 panels for my cards. I like making sets of cards, so stamping one large background like this one and trimming it down into smaller panels is very useful for me. The next step was to heat emboss a few sentiments for these projects, and I used another stamp set from Alt-New with some beautiful sentiments and simply heat embossed those in platinum embossing powder onto black cardstock. Simplicity is everything, so this is what I was going for. Very simple look. I adhered my stamped backgrounds onto black and white A2 tough folding card bases and foam mounted my sentiments on top. And this finishes my today's tutorial. I hope you'll give this type of background stamping a try. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!